Hello there, welcome to my YouTube channel, Unpack Cultage, formerly known as Truth Emotion Studios. Why I changed the name, I'm addressing in another video. So today I would like to talk with you about a very common experience for people who have left cults, who have left unhealthy toxic systems, or come out of an unhealthy relationship. And that is what I like to call an overactive, scrupulous conscience. It's this constant feeling of I'm not doing good enough, like I'm bad, or I messed this up. And it's an expression of a set of beliefs that we're probably not aware of. So for me, how this all manifested was that on the one hand, I'd be super duper willing and ready to beat myself up over things. Like for instance, I would be at work and I would say something to someone and there was a mistake, and then my telephone would ring and it'd be my boss and I'd be like, to this day, I can have an overreaction to something like that just because, well, we call that post-traumatic stress. When I learned to this dynamic, it had such a major effect on me that I'm still in the process of unpacking it 12 years later, but it has gotten much better. And it all started for me with unpacking it. So on the one hand, I'd be over ready to be like, I'm the worst person in the world, I deserve hell, to standing my ground and being stubborn in the face of when someone, my husband, for instance, would tell me, you hurt me, like you hurt me. Like I did something that hurt him. And I would be like, no, I didn't do that. That's not how I meant it. And you see on the one hand, the extreme, yes, I'm guilty, it's terrible, something horrible is going to happen to me, versus no, I'm good, I didn't do any of that. So what I needed to learn is to accept the fact that I'm both capable of making mistakes and I'm also capable of doing good things, and that there's a difference between intention and impact. And in relationships, that comes up a lot. You know, I can have the best intention controlling my husband's eating because I love him and I don't want him to get sick. And I don't want him to be sick and then I have to stop everything and start caring for him all my life. I just don't want him to be sick. But it's actually control. And so the impact is bad. It's you controlling me. That's unhealthy. Like it's toxic. So we are both capable of good and bad. And for me, I needed to come to just be like, yeah, that's just the human condition. Now, the way my cult messed me up, which is what I realized when I began to unpack what I'm actually thinking. You know, the emotions are so strong and cloud your thinking. And I'm not saying emotions are bad, not at all, but they tell you there's something to go inwards and to look at and to reflect upon. And so what I learned about myself is that back in the cult days, I learned that God is so vengeful and he will retaliate and punish me in ways that I don't even see coming, that I became really afraid of making a mistake. One simple example, July 7th, 2007. Goodness, that's like 15 years ago. We were in town all day because it's 7/7/2007, and we were fasting all day and we were praying all over and feeling super like we're the spiritual warriors, the spiritual superstars. It's just a matter of time until people realize that. Well, I said something to a friend of mine, like, and I made a joke. I imitated Paris Hilton. I was like, oh, that's hot, or something like that. And my co-cult leader heard that, and then he had a very harsh reaction, and I was ashamed and I was afraid, and I was also like, oh no, what is God thinking of me now? And experiences like that multiplied by 3 years, it messed me up greatly, and it essentially changed my belief of what God is like and what happens to you when you make a mistake, or when you sin, when you're not perfect. But let's go back to how I learned that the harshness, it was the harshness. And I have made another vlog on that topic of that really they were so harsh, unkind, and even wallowing in the ability and the opportunity to be bullies to us, spiritual bullies, to be condescending, to drag us down. That, yeah, that was damaging. But where were they coming from? That's really my question. Were they really thinking, I need to be harsh or she will not understand? We will never know. I know that had they told me that that's not very loving to talk about parasitism that way, and if I really don't know better, like if I were to meet her, would I talk to her that way? That would have helped me greatly. That would have helped me learn the lesson without scaring me, without scarring me. Now, as a mother, I have a 7-year-old and an almost 3-year-old. When the 7-year-old is mean to the little one, yeah, of course. Wouldn't it be wonderful if I could just perfectly stay in that posture? It's not about me. It's about you, 7-year-old. You get to learn the skill of being kind, of being mindful of your own power, so you're not abusing other people. Because I don't want you to become a bully. I think that'd be also what you don't want. And I want to protect my little one. If I could perfectly stay in this place, that'd be great. And I try to. It's on my mind. But you know how sometimes you get carried away. And so when sometimes I am sounding harsher, it's because I am getting frustrated and I'm getting afraid that I'm not getting through to him and that he will turn out to be a bully, which at the end of the day is really about me and my fear that I'm unleashing on that little one. Now, there's another way that we can be motivated to discipline children, especially our own children, or anyone, like a teacher in front of another teacher or whatever. It's shame. It's when we're so ashamed at what does that say about me, the way my kid acts or acts out, behaves badly. What does that say about me? Like when our firstborn was 2 years old, so this was like 5 years ago, we were on a plane from Florida to Minneapolis. It was like 3.5 hours, but the 2-year-old wasn't having it. He was freaking out. So I was the mother that let him run up and down the aisle every once in a while, and to keep him calm, to help him, right? Because the option was he was kicking the seat in front of him, and what we were supposed to do, you strangle him. So no, we didn't do that. So that was my best choice that I could come up with in that moment, letting him run the aisles. When we were looking for our baggage, a woman who was also on that plane walked by me, and she just uttered, "Parenting lessons, anyone?" as she walked by me. And wow, I felt the shaming. I felt the but honestly, at that point, I had already done a lot of inner work, and I unpacked this shaming attack, and I was able to say very clearly to myself, I'm not perfect. And you know what? That's okay. I made the best decision I could. How many hundreds of thousands of feet up in the air with a 2-year-old, and here we are. And I get it, it wasn't perfect. So that's it. But I can't change it now. And next time, I don't know, we'll not fly for a while, I guess. And then I also thought about that woman. How sad, how sad that she has to talk to complete strangers that way and pass on the shaming that she probably learned in her life from her mother or mother-in-law or the world. Maybe it came just from the inside, it's possible. But an overzealous conscience, a scrupulous conscience could crush under shame. And that's usually how it starts. When you look a little bit, remember, I'm not a psychologist. I've taken some classes, that's it. I'm not here to diagnose or treat anything. I'm telling you what helped me unpack it more and feel more free from very negative effects. when you look at what the beliefs are behind all that shame, for me, I found that I'm afraid that God will punish me, that I cannot escape the torment that my life has in store, and then maybe I won't go to heaven, and then there's life, like eternal punishment. That was what was behind my overzealous conscience. And it was also what was behind standing my ground and not admitting that I'm not perfect, because again, it's so painful to be there. So before I admit that, yes, I'm trying to control you and I mean well, but I know it's not good. It's not a good choice. You're a free person, make your own choices. It took me so long to get there because I was so afraid of feeling so bad for admitting I'm not perfect. So the middle ground is I'm a human. I've integrated the fact that there's good and bad inside of me, that my choices are good or bad, and I'm trying my best. And really, the bar as a Christian that I live with, it's my bar, is that I love God as much as I love the person that I like the least. So it doesn't say, I mean, it doesn't take long to say, I'm not going to be doing that very well, but I'm going to try. Here, that's my best advice to you. That's all I have, really. If my love for God is shown in the way how I love the person that I like the least, yeah, that bar is, it shows me that I'm human. And it shows me that I want to try. I want to do better. Now, here's the thought. As a person that has been highly influenced in really toxic spiritual beliefs and psychological mumble jumble that is all mixed in, if you're like a lot of the people that come from like Pentecostal backgrounds where you had to wear your hair so long, or you weren't allowed to cut it, or you had to wear your skirts, or I have a friend who used to be a Muslim, and when she had pork for the first time, like the fear, I get it. I totally get it. So I have never heard as much talk about pornography and tears than in my cult years. So the men and women, we were all shamed for sexuality. That seems to be an evangelical or maybe even a Christian, maybe a overall religious thing, that we shame children and everybody for sexuality. So men would talk about, they just, I don't know, it's like, at that time when my cult got into this, now we're talking about this all the time, they also started to split us more up into men and women. But until then, I heard a lot about men watching porn in tears. And so it's a very sad picture. And if you think about it, it's also kind of hellish, because there's something inside of you that you have to suppress so badly because it's evil. But on the other hand, you really cannot somehow, it's too weak or whatever, you haven't sweat the blood yet, or whatever it is that they're telling you, whatever your means would be to not do this evil thing inside of you, that when you actually break down and do it, you're just messed up by the whole thing. So again, that's a way how an overzealous conscience can show. Now, I have an example for you about an addiction that I got over with the Lord, but it's very different from the way that my cult told people to get over stuff, which is like, pray more, be more holy, don't talk to all these people. Because remember, the promise is if you're holy, then your life is going to be awesome and you're going to be great and fruitful and have a lot of money. And none of us had those lives, so we were never good enough and we were never holy enough. And there was always more people we could cut out of our lives and more money we could give to them. So here's this is from like the past 7 years or so. I had really turned my life around nutrition wise, and would go to Whole Foods and pay thrice as much for a food item so that I could feel like I'm avoiding the pesticides, I'm avoiding the chemicals. I eat my food happily and whatnot, and then I would have a cigarette. So for a while, I think when I was like 17 or so, I started to like party smoke here and there. And then it became always more, you know? And then when I wanted to stop, I kind of couldn't. And I felt like a hypocrite. Like I really feel bad about smoking. I used to enjoy this a lot, and I still enjoy it I'm speaking like years ago. I still enjoyed it, but I didn't enjoy the fact that my conscience was saying, hypocrite, hypocrite. So what did I do? At some point I said, I'm gonna bring God with me when I smoke, rather than saying, hey God, can you wait for me? I'm gonna step outside for a moment and have a cigarette, and then we can like totally be in connection again. I said, God, come with me. Well, God was there anyway, but the point was that I allowed God that exit, that entrance, that come with me. Like, this is not something that's going to separate us. This is something that I want to do with you. I'm going to have a smoke now, and I want you to be with me. I'm going to have a smoke saying thank you for the cigarette, because it's something that is here on this planet. Someone decided it was a good idea, and here we are. And I know it's not good for me, and I want to stop, but I can't. So I'm going to say thank you that you're here with me in the light with my smoking addiction. I'm not going to say it changed overnight, but it changed within a few weeks. I woke up one morning and I was done smoking. Done. Haven't looked back. I hate the smell of smoke. It's nicotine. It's disgusting at this point. But that's the point. Is not that I find it disgusting. No, the point is that our conscience is both a voice of very, very great importance. And if we don't bring God into the conscience, then we can totally get messed up. I think it's really important that if you believe that you're not living up to what God expects from you, that you unpack that. Unpack that. If God doesn't think you're doing enough, what would be enough? And every addict would say, just one more good thing. Just like, if I would just, it's still like, I haven't gone to bed yet. And yeah, I have to get up in the morning, but I could just, I do one more prayer, or I'll give more money to my cult leaders tomorrow, or whatever. Like, or I'll go and guilt another stranger into admitting that they go to hell. Something like that. Just one more thing. There are monks, I believe, from the Hindu religion, somewhere in India. I saw this on TV, and they have brushes that they sweep the path that they take to not crush any animals, any little bugs, any insects, ants, or whatever. And if they do, they spend a lot of time repenting in prayer for what they did. That's how far they're taking it. And again, I'm asking you, when you unpack your conscience, you're feeling guilty all the time after having left a group that, you know, they harmed you this way, but they also had the ability to make you feel holy. They both were the disease, but they also were the cure. And then the cure would wear off, absolution, you know, like, now you're okay, you've done this money thing, or we've seen you cry and pray for 5 hours at the service, you're okay now, you're forgiven, God says you're good, until it wears off and you're bad again, you're bad, and then you're doing all the hoopla, and then you're good again. And so when you're out of that system, you probably still have that residue, that cultage, that baggage from your cult, or from your toxic relationship, from your toxic people that you were around, and their toxic ways of thinking. I invite you, I encourage you, unpack that. Why are you feeling What are you thinking when you feel you're never good enough? When is good enough? And maybe you come to a conclusion that I did, or you don't have to, you can come to your own conclusion. As Christians, you know, when I used to be a Calvinist, when I used to believe that God killed Jesus so that we can be forgiven, why wasn't that good enough? Like, why, right? I believed that, and why wasn't that good enough? Why was I able to lose my salvation? Because I don't know, maybe to me, that's not where I'm at anymore. I believe now that we killed Jesus, and if the sooner we get to a place, the sooner I get to a place that I have all the potential in the world to be good and bad. And it comes down to how I choose to act, and that there's still a loving God that says, I forgive you. You don't know what you're doing. And even when you think you know what you're doing, you probably don't know what you're doing. That's the kind of God that I live with now. And so when I have extreme emotional reactions from that panic, that fear, like the past half year, I had an issue at my work, and then I was asked to come to the office. I could have had a heart attack on the way down, and I was very aware of that, but the fear was strong with me. And then I realized, or when I learned in the conversation, nobody was mad. I hadn't done anything wrong. There was a misunderstanding. Everything's good. So it's not even like it was a prophetic, you know, sense. It was just torment. And I think into that, Jesus says, in this world you have fear, but be of good cheer, because I've overcome the world. And then also keep in mind what good old Paul, that I like to take with a great grain of salt usually, but what he has to say about the conscience. But he says, for instance, fear, if you're not perfected in love, you're still afraid. And why are you afraid? Because you are afraid of punishment. And as long as you act out of ways for fear of punishment, you are not free. You're not perfected in love. And you know what? We're not going to be perfected in love here, but just accept that and maybe and see where that takes you, because God is good. And I think really, to me, the thing that gets me through the day, the thing that gets me through what could feel like a panic attack, is that thought: God is much better than I give him credit for. Much better than I give him credit for, or give them credit for, whichever pronoun you like to use for God. So those are my thoughts. Do a Bible word search for conscience if you are still in the Christian thought world, or if not, do it anyway, maybe because it's really fascinating. Paul is incredibly philosophical. I dig him when he talks about the conscience. He also speaks about the conscience as a voice that heathens have. They just have it, and that's how God has written the law on their hearts. And that their conscience sometimes accuses them and sometimes justifies them. So it's wonderful to you know, have some thought about all that. Yeah. So with all that being said, thanks for listening. Feel free to share your thoughts. Know that I'm not here to debate Bible verses. I'm very happy to engage with anyone who has something to say. That, yeah. Remember, I'm not a therapist. I'm not here to heal you. I'm here to share what has helped me find more peace in life. All right. Be blessed abundantly.